Hey, everybody, welcome in to our virtual workshop on brainstorming a new novel. I'm going to go ahead and warn everybody now that I'm having some voice issues. I've had a little bit of a beginning of summer cold that's just been kicking my butt. So I'm going to be sucking on a cough drop and possibly sipping on some hot coffee. So everybody, just give me a little grace if you could. I would really appreciate it. Um, if you tuned in last Monday to Abby and I did a fireside chat on this very topic, how do we begin a novel? And we talked a little bit about kind of what that magic moment of creation is, where at one moment the book does not exist, and then what your process is for hatching it from that initial idea into a full blown book plan. And so that's kind of the genesis for this workshop, is kind of taking that idea, and we wanted to explore kind of how we begin a book. I think everyone is familiar with kind of laying out a plan and then executing that plan, but where does the plan come from? And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. So good to see everybody in the chat. I'm going to be looking over and trying to monitor what's going on here in the chat. Good to see everybody. I won't call everybody out by name. You know who you are, and I'm so thankful that you're all here. So let's get started. Before we do, I had put together a little bit of a workbook that we could, we're going to have a couple of little 5-minute spots that I reserved in the workshop where I could give you some things to work on. They're very minor, but I decided to take those things and add them to a Dabble template. So I put a link in here where you can download the Dabble template. You can add that to your Dabble, and then it'll show up a folder in the story notes section called Brainstorm Workbook, and you can kind of work through some of these exercises. If you don't want to go through all that, or want to do that after the fact, just get a sheet of paper and jot down. They're very simple exercises, but they're things that might be helpful to you. So anyway, just open up if you don't want to do the template, open up your Dabble project, go to your story notes folder, and jot down the exercises that we do there, or a sheet of paper is fine. Whatever. Just have something where you can record some thoughts. Okay, all good. Let's get started. And I'm working on a cough drop, so like I said, please give me some grace. So welcome. I'm so glad that you're all here today. If you showed up, then that means you've got a novel in you somewhere. Maybe it's a whisper. Maybe it's been yelling at you for a decade. But either way, we've got some time today, and I want to use it constructively. Here's what today is and what it is not. Today is not me handing you an outline template you can plug your idea into. There are hundreds of those on the internet already. You don't need another one. Today's a thinking workshop. We're going to brainstorm in 3 directions, and at the end, you're going to walk out with the raw material on the page that didn't exist when you walked in. The frame that we're going to use. Most writers, when they get the itch for a new book, they start with plot. They want to know what happens. They chase the cool scene, the twist, the opening line that showed up in the shower at 6:30 in the morning. But I think that's backward. I learned that the hard way. I started a novel once with a great hook, a bank robbery, a small town, a body in the river. I wrote 40,000 words, and I had to throw all of them out. Not because the hook was bad. The hook was fine. I just never asked myself who was robbing the bank and why she was the one who had to. The character was smoke. The book wouldn't hold together because nothing under it was real. The books that stick, the ones you finish and then push into a friend's hands, are built character first, inside a setting that matters, with a plot that had to happen to this person in this place. So today we're going to brainstorm in that order: character, setting, plot. We're going to take these in chunks. We're going to have a 5-minute silent writing break inside every section. I'll go through it, then I'll mute myself. You'll write. The silence and those opportunities is the point. A workshop where you leave with nothing on the page is a lecture, and a lecture is not what I promised you. The ground rules. If either get your piece of paper together, open up your Dabble project or your notes app, whatever it is. But today we're going to actively work on something. So be prepared in one way or another. One ground rule is the workbook, the notes that you take. It's not a test. It's a thinking tool. Your first answer is allowed to be bad. Bad answers are just the ones that clear out so the good ones can show up. So write fast today. Don't edit yourself. We're not finishing anything in this workshop today. We're starting. So let's go. Part 1 is character. I want to tell you something that took me years to learn. Plot doesn't carry a novel. Character does. You've read books where a lot happened and you didn't care, and you've read books where almost nothing happened and you could not put them down. Think about it for a second. A whole novel about 2 brothers going fishing. A whole novel about a woman cleaning out her dead mother's house. A whole novel about a man sitting in a kitchen waiting for a phone call. The plots on paper are nothing, and those books wreck you anyway. The difference isn't the events. The difference is whether you cared about the person the events were happening to. So before you brainstorm a single scene, you brainstorm a person. Here are the 2 questions I want you to keep on a sticky note above your desk. What does she want or he want? And what is she or he afraid of? 2 crucial questions. Desire and fear. That's the engine. Everything your character does, she does because she wants something or because he's running from something, usually both at once. The whole novel is her negotiating between those 2 forces. Quick example. Think about Atticus Finch. What does he want? He wants to raise his kids to see other people clearly. What is he afraid of? That the world they live in will teach them not to. The plot of that book is the collision of those 2 things. Take either one out and you don't have a novel anymore. Now here's the trick. Most writers, when they sit down to think about their character, can answer the first question. What does she want? They've got that. The job, the boy, the promotion, the truth. What stops them is the second question. They don't know what she's afraid of because they haven't sat with her long enough to find out. So sit with her. Get past the easy answer. She's afraid of failure is an easy answer. But it's not really an answer at all. She's afraid that if she opens that letter, she'll find out her brother knew is an answer. Specific, personal, particular to her. The third piece, the lie. So we've got the character triangle. There's a third piece, and this one is a piece most writers skip. What does she believe that isn't true? Every real character is walking around with a lie in her head. The lie feels true to her. She defend it. She built her life on it. If I just work hard enough, he'll love me. If I don't need anybody, nobody can hurt me. If I get back to that ranch, everything will be the way that it is. The lie is what keeps her from getting what she wants. The arc of the novel is the lie breaking. Here's what's tricky about the lie. It's almost never the obvious one. I'm not good enough isn't a lie. It's wallpaper. The deep lie is more specific, more personal, and harder to name. If I leave him, my mother will have been right about me. If I stop being the strong one, my family will fall apart and it'll be my fault. If I go home, I'll find out there was nothing waiting for me and I won't be able to live with that. The deep lie is what you're brainstorming toward. The specific one, the one with shoes on. Desire, fear, lie. Write those 3 words down. That's your character triangle. If you can fill in all 3 sentences, you've got more than most first drafts ever get. Build from contradiction. Here's your second tool. Build from a contradiction. The most boring character in the world is the one who's only one thing: the brave cop, the kind pastor, the brilliant scientist. Those aren't people, they're job titles. Real people are contradictions. The kindest woman you know has a secret cruelty. The toughest man you know has a private fear. The one who seems most together is the one holding it most tightly. You know this. You've sat across the dinner table from it. I'll tell you where I learned this. I had a character once, a deputy in a small Mississippi town, brave on the page, did the right thing, said the right thing. 2 readers told me that he was boring, said they couldn't tell him apart from 20 other deputies and 20 other novels. And they were right. So I wrote him with one change. I gave him a private fear. He was afraid of his own house after dark. His wife had died there 4 years before, and he'd never told anyone he couldn't sleep alone. He kept the porch light on and a chair against the bedroom door, and he lied to his sister about why. The plot didn't change, the scenes didn't change, but he came alive on the page because the crack was visible, and that crack is where your reader gets in. So after you write your triangle, write one sentence. My character is mostly blank, but underneath he's blank. The brave deputy who's afraid of his own house after dark, the funny grandfather who hasn't spoken to his son in 12 years, the gentle midwife who once did something she's never told another soul, the hard-nosed editor who keeps a stack of her father's letters in her desk and reads them when nobody's around. That second half of the sentence, the hidden part, that's where your story lives. One more thing before I shut up and let you write. Don't waste your brainstorm on backstory. I know every writing book tells you to fill out the 12-page character sheet. Favorite color, sign of the zodiac, mother's maiden name, name of the first pet. Put the pen down. I have written all of those sheets, and they never made a single character better. What you actually need to know is interiority. What does she notice when she walks into a room? What does she lie about? Even in small ways, especially in small ways. What does she reread when nobody's looking? What would she never say out loud? The reader never needs to know her mother's maiden name. The reader needs to know that when she gets nervous, she touches the back of her neck, right where her mother used to, and she hates that she does it. Here's a fast trick for finding interiority. Drop your character into a room she does not want to be in. Maybe it's a funeral, a reunion, the doctor's waiting room, the bank lobby where she's about to ask for a loan she knows she won't get. Don't write what happens, write what she notices. The cheap floral arrangement, the sister's new shoes, the water stain on the ceiling tile. What she notices tells you who she is faster than any character sheet ever will. So now, we're going to take 5 minutes. I'm going to track the time. And in this 5 minutes, pick your main character and write 3 things. The desire, fear, and lie triangle. It's 1 sentence each. And then the contradiction sentence, mostly blank, underneath blank. And then The next thing, I want you to write one thing she or he would never say out loud. No editing, no perfecting. Just write it down. Timer starts right now. 5 minutes. Okay, everybody. Let's uh let's move on. If you still have some of these questions you're working on, you can pick it up afterwards. But um, that was beneficial for you, and that you learned something about your characters from that. Abby was saying, what's an example of that? And I said one character that I wrote has a rash on one of her hands. That's a symptom of her washing her hands constantly, and that was a sign that she was constantly trying to wash guilt away. It was just a little external symptom of something that was going on internally. So those are just things that you can look for. Um, we'll carry on. Um, Now, what you've just worked on, hold that, and we're going to come back to it. Stop writing for there. We'll come back to it, or you can work on it later. But don't worry if it's rough. Rough is the point. Here's what you just did. You went past what does my character look like, and you got to what does my character carry. That's the work nobody does, and it's the work that separates a stock character from an actual person. So hold on to that page. We're coming back to it. Now, we're going to move to setting. Most writers treat setting like decoration, the room where the scene happens, the town the book is set in, background, something to mention in the first paragraph and then forget about. That's not what setting does in a good novel. Setting is a character. It puts pressure on the people. It has a will of its own. It wants something. It refuses things. It remembers. If your setting could be lifted out of your book and replaced with anywhere else, your setting is not doing enough work. The setting in a novel that lasts is the kind the story could not have happened without. So let's look at specifics over generics. The first rule, always specific over generic. Specific is always more important. A small town is nothing. You could find it on 1,000 book jackets. It's a phrase that means I haven't done the work yet. But a town where the paper mill closed in 1987 and nobody talks about it, now that's something. That town has a wound. The wound is going to show up in your character's kitchen. It's going to show up at the dinner counter when nobody mentions the Williams family. It's going to show up in the boarded up storefronts that used to be the dry cleaner and the shoe store and the drugstore where the soda fountain still ran when your protagonist was 9. I had a writer ask me once how to make her town feel real. She'd been writing for 2 years. The town was called Riverside. Population, in her head, 12,000. I asked her, what's the thing in Riverside that everybody knows but nobody mentions? She thought for a minute and said, the boy who drowned in 1998. I said, write that. Not as a flashback, not as a backstory paragraph. Write the part where the street light on the corner where his bike was found has been broken for 14 years and the city won't fix it. Write the diner that doesn't serve catfish anymore because his uncle owned it and never came back. Write the way the high school swim team got disbanded that fall. The book broke open for her, not because she added more setting, but because she made the setting do something. The goal when you brainstorm a setting is not to build a place. It's to find a place that's doing something for your people. 3 layers of setting. So I want you to brainstorm your setting in 3 layers. First layer is physical. What do you touch, smell, hear, taste when you're there? Is it the cold of a country church in January, linoleum floor, plastic pew cushions, the smell of coffee burning in the fellowship hall? Is it the heat of a Louisiana porch in July, mosquitoes in the lamplight, the green smell of the river? Is it the dry static air of a hospital room at 3 a.m? Get specific enough that you could walk into that place blindfolded and know where you were. Reach for the senses your reader doesn't expect. Sight is easy. Anyone can describe what something looks like. The senses that hit the hardest are smell and touch, the cold of the doorknob, the dust on the windowsill, the coffee that's been on the burner since 10. Those are the details that put your reader inside the room. The second layer, social. Who has power and who doesn't? Every setting has an invisible map of who's in and who's out. Who gets served first at the diner? Who doesn't get invited to the wedding? Whose name got cut from the church directory? Who the deputies wave at and who they don't? Your character lives inside that map, whether she knows it or not. Half the time, she's somebody on the wrong side of a line she didn't draw. This is the layer that makes a setting feel like a real place instead of a postcard. Tourists see physical setting, locals see social setting. Write your setting like a local. The third layer is temporal. What happened here before your story started? And why does it still matter? Maybe it's the flood of 73, the girl who disappeared from the high school in 94, the business that closed when the interstate bypassed the town, the mill, the fire, the election that split the church. Setting always has a past. The past is why the present feels the way it does. You don't need to put all of this on the page, but you need to know it. The reader will feel the weight of what you know even when you don't say it out loud. That's the iceberg. The 7/8 under the water is what makes the 1/8 above feel heavy. The weather rule. One more tool. The weather rule. Every setting has a mood. Before you start writing scenes, ask yourself, what is the emotional weather of this world? Is it the long gold afternoon of something about to end? Is it the cold blue light of something that already ended and nobody's admitted it yet? Is it the sticky, close, breathing heat of a secret that's about to come out? Is it the dry, white silence of January in a house where two people have stopped talking? Then ask yourself, does the actual weather agree with that mood or does it fight it? Sometimes the most powerful scenes are the ones where the world is bright and easy and something terrible is happening underneath. The funeral on a perfect spring Saturday. The argument in the kitchen while the kids play in the sprinkler. Sometimes it's the opposite. The storm outside matching the storm inside. Either works, as long as you chose it. The thing you're avoiding is generic weather. Don't put rain in a sad scene because you read somewhere that you should. Put rain because you decided what the rain is doing. Last piece, borrow from the real world. You don't have to invent a place from scratch. In fact, I recommend not doing that. The places that feel truest in fiction are the ones the writer actually knows. Your grandmother's kitchen, the gas station you passed every day driving to school, the pew your family sat in for 30 years, the creek behind the house where you grew up. Specificity reads as truth. A detail you made up to sound good will sound made up. A detail you stole from real life will feel inevitable, even when you've never explained why. My grandmother kept a kitchen towel folded over the handle of the oven, always the same way, always the same towel until it wore through, then the same way with a new one. I've used that detail in 2 different books, different characters, different houses, different decades. Both times readers told me they could see the kitchen. Neither time did I describe a single other thing about the kitchen. The towel was enough because the towel was true. So when you brainstorm, give yourself permission to steal. Not the whole place, just the one detail that cracks it open. The smell of the basement, the sound of the screen door, the chair nobody sits in. Steal one and keep going. Okay. Let's take another 5-minute exercise. I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock, And I want you to name your setting, then write three details: one physical, one social, one temporal. What's the emotional weather of this world? One sentence. And what's one thing you're borrowing from real life? Time starts now. Okay, everybody, time's up. Um, how's everybody feeling about these exercises? Are they showing themselves to be fruitful? Um, Also, when we're finished here, um, feel free to go over these again and to give yourself time to think about it and to put more into it. I hope this has beneficial and helpful for you. Um, Next up, okay, we're going to hold that page that we've just done, and we're going to come back to it. Uh, the setting you just brainstormed already has your character in it, whether you planned it or not. The social layer, the temporal wound, the weather, these are pressures on somebody, on her, on him, whoever your character is. That's the job. A setting without a person in it is a postcard. A person without a setting around her is a ghost. You need both. Now, sometimes you may be telling a ghost story, and maybe that's good information to put in your hip pocket as well. But that's for another time, another day. Hold that page too. We're about to put them together. Plot. Plot is not bolted on. Here's what I want to say before we start. Plot is not something you bolt on at the end. Plot is what happens because of who this person is in this specific place. If your plot could happen to anybody in any town, it's not your plot. It's a plot. It's a shape you downloaded from a screenwriting book. Your plot is the one that could not happen without your character's particular wound in your setting's particular weather. Read that. Your plot is the one that could not happen without your character's particular wound in your setting's particular weather. That's the test. If your plot can be lifted off the page and slapped onto a different protagonist or a different town, you haven't found your plot yet. You found a frame. The good news is you've already done the work to find your plot. You did it in the last 30 minutes. The plot is sitting in the gap between what your character wants and what your setting will let her have. That's it. That's the whole thing. The one sentence test. First tool, the one sentence test. Before you outline anything, write this sentence. My character wants blank, but blank, and if she fails, blank. Want, obstacle, stakes. That's a novel. My character wants to bring her brother home from the war, but he doesn't want to come, and if she fails, the last piece of her mother dies with him. My character wants to keep the ranch in the family, but the bank is calling the note. And if he fails, he loses the last place his father's voice still lives. My character wants to forgive her sister before her sister dies, but her sister won't admit she did anything wrong. And if she fails, she'll spend the next 30 years carrying it alone. Notice what those sentences have in common. The wants are concrete. The obstacles are not villains, they're problems with shape. The stakes are personal. They're the kind of stakes that hurt to write. Now here's what a failing one-sentence test looks like. My character wants to find herself, but she's lost. And if she fails, she'll never be happy. That's not a sentence. That's a fortune cookie. There's nothing concrete in it, nothing you could film, nothing you could fail at. If you can't write the sentence in under 30 words, with concrete nouns in all three blanks, you don't have a plot yet. Keep brainstorming. Stay there until it shows up. 5 beats for brainstorming. Your second tool is your 5 beats for brainstorming, not outlining, brainstorming. The difference matters. An outline is architecture. Beats are sketches. You're looking for shape, not blueprints. You don't need scenes yet. You need the spine. Beat 1 is the inciting incident. What happens that pulls her out of her ordinary life? The phone call, the letter in the mailbox, the sister at the door, the things she can't unknow once she's heard it. Don't pick something flashy. Pick something her ordinary life cannot absorb. Beat number 2, the first big decision. She could go home. She doesn't. Why not? This is the beat where she chooses the story. The story doesn't happen to her. She picks it up. The reader needs to feel the moment she could have walked away and didn't. That moment is the contract between her and the reader. Beat 3, the midpoint reversal. She thought this was the problem. It turns out to be something else, something worse, or deeper, or closer to home. The midpoint is where the surface story drops away and the real story shows up. She thought she was looking for her brother. It turns out the question was always who her father had been. She thought the ranch was the problem. It turns out the ranch was the only place she'd ever been honest. The midpoint is where you, the writer, prove to the reader that you've been telling a deeper story all along. Beat 4, the darkest moment. Everything she tried has failed. The lie she's been telling herself, the lie you wrote down in the character section, has been exposed. She's alone with what she really is. This is the beat that scares writers. We don't want to put our characters here. We want to skip past it. Don't. The darkest moment is where the reader earns the ending. Without it, the ending is unearned. Beat 5, the new self. She makes a choice the old her couldn't have made. Notice the wording. The new self isn't a new circumstance. The bad guy getting beat, the ranch getting saved, the brother coming home, those are the wrapping. The real ending is that she's somebody who can make this choice now when she couldn't before. That choice is the ending. The plot is in service of that choice. Everything you wrote in beats 1 through 4 was in service of putting her at the place where this choice was possible. You don't need to know the scenes yet. You just need one sentence per beat. If you only have 3 of the 5, that's fine. Brainstorm to the edges of what you know and stop there. Internal stakes. The third tool, make the stakes internal. This is the piece most first drafts miss. I missed it for a decade. I wrote 3 novels before I figured this out, and one of them got rejected by every agent I sent it to, and looking back, I know exactly why. The stakes were external. The reader couldn't feel them. Losing the ranch isn't the real stake. The real stake is losing the last thread connecting her to her father. Winning the case isn't the real stake. The real stake is finally proving she's not the family screw-up everybody said she was. Saving the kid isn't the real stake. The real stake is forgiving herself for the kid she couldn't save 20 years ago. External stakes are the clothes. Internal stakes are the skin. Both matter, but the internal ones are what the reader actually feels. When the reader cries at the end of a novel, she's not crying because the ranch was saved. She's crying because somebody finally got to lay something down they've been carrying for too long. That's the internal stake. When you brainstorm your plot, write down the external stakes first, then underneath, write down what those stakes actually mean. What she's really fighting for. That second line is the one that matters. Most of the time, the external stake is just an excuse to put the internal stake in motion. One last piece, and then I'll let you write. Seed the ending in the opening. Whatever your character needs to learn, whatever the lie is that's going to break, plant it in chapter 1. Not the answer, but the wound. If she's going to learn to trust, show her failing to trust on page 1. If she's going to learn to let her father go, show her holding on too tight on page 1. If she's going to learn to forgive her sister, show her sharpening her resentment in the first scene, polishing it like a stone she carries in her pocket. The reader doesn't need to know where the book is going. She just needs to feel somewhere in her bones that the opening and the ending are the same question asked twice. This is what makes a book feel inevitable, not foreshadowing in the cheap sense where you wink at the reader. Inevitability in the deep sense, where the ending feels like the only thing that could have happened, because the wound was on the page from the first paragraph. The reader closes the book and thinks, of course it ended that way. It was always going to. That's the craft. Brainstorm toward that. Okay, our final exercise here. 5 more minutes. I want you to write the one sentence test. Want, obstacle, stakes. Write one sentence for each of the 5 beats. Write the external stake, then underneath the internal stake it stands for. Okay, pencils down. I always wanted to say that ever since college entrance exams. All right. That if you didn't get a chance to finish, that's okay. You can do this later. I hope that you've been able to get some new ideas and see how this works together. All right. Stop, breathe for a minute. If you've got the 1 sentence test and 3 of the 5 beats, you've already got more than most writers have when they start drafting. If you didn't get all of it, that's fine. Brainstorming is not finishing. Brainstorming is finding the edges of what you don't know yet. The places where you got stuck are the places the next week's thinking lives. Weaving it all together. Here's what I want you to leave with. Look at what you just wrote. 3 pages, character, setting, plot. Now I want you to read them in that order and ask one question. Does each one need the other 2? Could your plot happen to a different character? If yes, then the plot isn't yours yet. Push harder. Could your character exist in a different setting? If yes, then the setting isn't doing enough. Push harder. Could your setting hold a different story? If yes, then the story hasn't locked in. Push harder. The books that feel inevitable are the ones where the 3 legs of the stool can't be swapped out. This character in this place would have to face this plot. Nothing else would fit. You read the last page and you can't imagine the book any other way. That's not magic, that's craft. And it starts here in the brainstorm. The decisions you make in this hour are the ones that lock the legs to each other. Outlining can't fix what's not locked in here. Drafting can't either. That's what you're brainstorming toward. Not a book that's fine, a book that's inevitable. Okay, so here's your homework. This is how you take this and put it into application. Let me get the homework slide. So here's your homework. 2 things. 1, sit with what you've wrote today for 1 week. Don't draft yet. Let it breathe. See what stays, see what falls away. Some of what you wrote today will look smaller in 7 days, and some of it will get bigger. Trust that. Number 2, at the end of the week, write the back cover copy for your book, 150 words, so less than a page. The pitch you'd read on the back of the paperback. If you can write back cover copy that makes you want to read the book, then you're ready to draft. If you can't, that's not failure, that's data. Come back to your character page and your setting page and your plot page and find the place that's still soft. Brainstorm there. Okay. Any questions before we wrap up? Let's take a few questions, drop them in the chat, and let's see. Finally, someone doesn't call it a blurb. I mean, you could call it a blurb, but you know. Any questions? I hope this was helpful. You can use this brainstorming as an exercise anytime. Sometimes I'll have an idea, but I'm not sure if it's a great idea, and I'll go through this 3-step process. Rob says, how many licks does it take to actually get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop? A 1, a 2. We all know how that goes. I have a friend who got stuck with the first chapter trying to make it perfect. Any helpful ideas? I say if you're stuck in that first chapter phase, a lot of times that is because, for me, that's because I didn't understand who my character was, and I didn't have a firm idea of what their real want was, or what their hurt was. So what I wound up doing is changing the wallpaper over and over again, rewriting that first chapter because I didn't understand my character. Most of the time, when you get stuck in that first chapter cycle, it's because your character doesn't have any drive. So I would go back and figure out who that character is. What does he want? What is preventing him from getting what he wants? A lot of times, those problems can be resolved right there. Hope that helps. Anybody else? We'll take another question or two as we wrap up here. If you are able to install that Dabble template, it is very simple. It was just these questions and answers that we put into a story notes section. But for me, that's very helpful for getting started. And it's something that you can replicate over and over again. And hello, Abby. How are you?
I thought just in case it was easier to talk to another person instead of just to the blank screen while you're waiting for questions, I would pop in.
Yeah. So, was there anything in that was that you thought was helpful? And I know we talked about this ad nauseum last Monday, and but yeah, this is just my process that I've used over and over. What do you think? How
You know
how
what
does
I'm
this?
gonna steal? I'm
Yeah,
stealing your tea towel piece. The idea that you just described that one part of the kitchen, but it was specific enough that everybody sort of painted the picture in their head. And I think that sticks with me because I also have a tea towel that hangs, same one, on my oven door handle. And it like took me immediately into my own kitchen. And I was like, oh, it's so good.
the weird thing that I realized was I got caught up in describing all of the details. And what I realized is and this happened when I went back and reread some of my favorite books, is that there would be one or two very specific details, and then I had painted all of the rest of the picture, and I just assumed that the writer did. And when I went back and looked at it critically, they did almost nothing except for this one very specific thing, and to me that was so eye-opening.
What a brilliant observation as well, though, because, I've heard there's one set of like craft advice that's like, let the reader paint their own picture. But then there's
Yes.
another set of craft advice that's like, well, the reader doesn't know unless you tell them.
Right.
And you're like, well, how do I do both? Because they expect you to do both.
Yep.
How do I do that? And I think what a great insight into how you do both. And so
Right.
we do have two questions here. Oh, I think I showed it and you showed it at the same time. How does this apply to writing short fiction? Ooh, your favorite topic.
Yes, and I think this is amplified with short fiction. And as a matter of fact, I think writing short fiction will make this point that we just talked about obvious to you. And this is one of those things that you learn from short fiction that help you to be a better novel writer. Because in short fiction, you don't have the room to describe the whole kitchen. But what you do have room for is to find that one item that is so resonant that then makes the reader fill in the rest of the picture without them feeling like they're doing all the work. But it is obvious. It's that tea towel thing that where because of that towel, now I'm standing in my Nana's kitchen, and I know where I am, and I can see all of the other little details that the writer doesn't have to paint for me because I'm doing the work all over. And this is one of those things that you don't necessarily do anything differently for short fiction, but short fiction will force you into that corner that you have to write your way out of. And then that's a tool that you will carry with you into novel writing. That it's crucial for short fiction because you're restrained, but it's really no different than in novel writing.
To piggyback off of that, when was Hank's short fiction thing? We have a replay for that, don't we?
A couple of weeks ago, but the replay is on YouTube, so just go back and watch it, Bon. It's on there. Go to our YouTube channel, click on the live tab, and it's there.
What a great workshop, Hank. I
Well,
think
thank
we
you.
hit all the questions.
Well, thank you. And we've got, I think I've got 8 more workshops planned out. And we are going to be doing these every 2 weeks and alternating them with fireside chats with Abby and me on the alternating Mondays. And then we're going to do a craft workshop on the other Mondays. So
there was a request. I believe Reagan asked, could everyone have a copy of your slides?
Yes, I will post them over in Dabble in just a minute.
Nice.
Yes.
All right, everybody.
Thanks for joining us, y'all.
Yeah.